Hi, and welcome to Yoga Talks Live. I'm your host, Ashleigh Sergeant, and today I'm here with Steph Schwartz, one of our teachers, and we are going to be talking about the power of mantra. We also have Jacqueline here. Jacqueline's going to be receiving your questions and giving them to us directly. So let's start off talking a little bit about mantra and what mantra is. One of the ways that I really first connected to mantra was I'm very kind of like heady, like intellectual space. I need to like understand what everything is before I get really into it. So the definition of mantra that I received that I really love is, the first part of the word man means, it comes from the word manas in Sanskrit, which is the mind. And tra means to kind of traverse or to expand. And so a mantra is something that is used specifically to expand the mind, to expand our individual thoughts, the kind of on and on and on thoughts that we always have going on, that seem to be ceaseless, to transform those away from this internal focus just on ourselves and just on, the busyness of the mind, and expand into a connection with something greater, something more than just ourselves, and really using the power of sound to be able to do that. How about you? You chant a lot, and I know that on our Yoga Everyday series, usually bring your harmonium here. And this is why we wanted to do this particular show with you. So how about you tell me a little bit about what do you love about mantra? What is it for you that, kind of got you hooked, and what does it do for you?
Well, to tag onto what you said about the mind expanding, our thought processes can make us feel really little and just focused on one thing. And the mantra for me is just a vehicle to drop the mind into the body, but ultimately to feel what's happening in the bigness of the heart and of the spirit. And so when I first signed up for teacher training, I don't really like public speaking. I have a fear of public speaking. So I tried to quit teacher training that very first night. Well, 12 years later, no, here I am. And I'm actually singing and playing music, in classes, which I never would have imagined. And what the mantra did for me was it really helped me bring a tool for myself, which ultimately was beneficial to our whole group, to sing, to get out of the littleness of my mind thoughts. So I'm not good enough. I'm afraid to sit up here and speak in front of all these eyeballs staring at me. And it helped me in the beginning initially to drop in so I could share the gift of teaching. And then ultimately what it does is in the classes that I share with people, it helps everyone feel that we're all in this together. So I'd much less be that person on the pedestal. I'm trying to drop myself down to this level where we're all in this together. And it's a way to get connected. It's not only that personal connection, but it's a way to feel connected in community without having to do too much around that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all can in some way connect to an experience of having a piece of music that has moved us, a piece of music that we've had a shared enjoyment of it with someone else, and how even just having that shared experience can help us feel more connected. And I think there's so many ways to do that, and I love that this is a part of the yoga tradition that not as many maybe Western or modern yoga practitioners necessarily know about or feel comfortable with. So I think really understanding and like you said, just feeling into the shift that it creates is the most important thing.
Yeah, and what's the first thing that a friend says when you say, hey, come take yoga? They always say, I'm not flexible enough.
Right.
And you say, hey, come to a kirtan. Oh, I can't stand my voice, Right. But it's about something bigger. It's about feeling that big S in the self versus the little s that we spend most of our time in. And I tell people you could be playing in a drum circle, you could be singing at the top of the lungs in your car or in the shower, and it doesn't have to be Sanskrit necessarily at all.
Sure.
It's a very short umbilical cord to the soul when we're in music, when we're in rhythm, when we're in some type of a vibration. And it's a way to lose your mind in the moment and to get high on vibes and to feel that, oh wait, I have abundance in my life. I just forgot to look and feel that. Yeah, and realize that.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what some of our members are asking.
All right.
Jacqueline, you have a question for us?
Yeah, we have a great question coming in from Kate. She's asking, when I use mantra, it doesn't take long before I realize that I'm actually not repeating the mantra, but instead thinking, planning, or worrying. What can she do about that?
Mm-hmm. Well, I know I have some things to chime in about, but why don't you chime in first?
Yeah, and it's great just to watch the process of the mind, like where it kicks in, where it wants to say, all right, what am I fixing for dinner, going to the grocery store. But again, it's just about practice and repetition, and the more we repeat and persevere within the repetition, the more confidence we gain. And also, I feel just to be kind towards yourself, because some days are going to feel more dramatic in the mind than others, and just to ride the waves of what it is. And other days you'll be dropping in, and you're ultimately building this muscle memory in your system, where at some point, you start out, you meditate for 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and then before you know it, you're at 20 minutes. Sure. So it's just about the practice and the repetition and compassion and kindness towards self. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'd also like to say that, the mind doesn't really ever stop. My teacher says that, if the mind is an organ, its job is to secrete thought. So it's not going to stop doing its job. But rather, when we do mantra practice or we do meditation practice, really what we're learning to do is to be able to turn down like the sound of the mind, so that if the mind was like a radio frequency, you're kind of turning down the frequency of the mind and turning up the frequency of the heart, like you said, or the power of the mantra. So, there's many times when I can feel actually like I'm in really deep mantra practice, and the mind's there, like it's happening. The thoughts are kind of floating around, but the mind doesn't have to grab onto them or latch onto them or kind of connect to them and then follow them down a path. It's like we instead can have those things happening over there and let them rest kind of into the backdrop, rest into the background, and keep letting the sound of the mantra kind of rise up and support us.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Turn down the volume.
Turn down the volume. Sometimes you just have to sing louder in order to turn down the volume of the mind. And sometimes it can be deeply quiet inside of ourselves.
Yes,
that's a good question. How about another one?
We have Jack from Hawaii saying, aloha.
Aloha, Jack.
Sometimes I feel inspired to make up chants. Do you ever create your own mantras? What's the process of creating your own chants?
Well, I think this is a great question, and this is one of those things that, like we were talking about, it can kind of poke in some sore spots with different traditions.
Yes, yeah.
And so I think I'd like to start off by saying, one of the things that we know is true is that everything in the universe is vibrating. Everything in the universe is, and because it's vibrating, is sound. The yogis and the ancients and many different traditions knew this already and kind of created languages, particularly Sanskrit, the language that these mantras are built in, is mostly a phonetic language. So it's really all about like the sound itself is actually articulating the very thing that it is. Like we say, like woof, woof.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like an onomatopoeia. No, that's not an onomatopoeia. Like, hold on.
I think you're talking about a dog.
I think exactly. You think so? But that essentially when we are tuning into anything in the universe, that everything is vibrating. And so we know now that matter is affected by sound. And this is a study of cymatics. And I think it's just always so amazing when like now modern science is really starting to prove all of these things that these ancient traditions, definitely in the yoga tradition, have been using for a long time. And so now we've been able to really prove through the science of cymatics, and there's some really cool videos that you can check out on Gaia and on other places that you can find easily. If you search cymatics, you'll see the way that sound actually impacts matter. So what that means is that the way that we speak, like our voices and our words mean something. Right. And they affect the world around us, and they affect ourselves. They affect our bodies. The way we speak to ourselves, the way we think actually has an imprint on our physical being and the world around us. And so being able to use mantras that are in the language of Sanskrit are really deeply connected to particular frequencies that are healing and that help us to resonate, with the greater of consciousness, as instead of just our own individual consciousness.
Yeah.
And so a lot of traditionalists will say that, and will say like, oh my goodness, you can't make up your own mantras because the mantras need to be sung or spoken very specifically according to this language in order to be able to get the full impact of them. Like some very scholarly traditions will say that. And then there's much more room kind of in the bhakti tradition of yoga where it's more, in my experience, deeply connected to the heart and the devotional energy that is behind what we speak or what we sing.
Yeah.
So in that sense, this idea of like creating our own mantras, or just like when sound just comes out, it wants to move freely from us, that there's a deep devotional quality behind it. And I think that in my experience, that is also the aspect of transformation, and has been my personal experience around kind of creating mantra, or just like letting something, come out. What's your, experience around that? And I know you were sharing before that you have kind of with some of our classes on the site as well, sing maybe some non-traditional yoga lyrics or Sanskrit lyrics, and have maybe made it even up your own mantras. Do you want to talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, well, in terms of the Sanskrit stuff, I think what I look at is, okay, if I'm needing a little help from Ganesha, so I explain it like it's the mantras are the Price is Right of the heart when you're using it for specific deities. So for instance, behind this door, we have Ganesha, the elephant-headed deity, and he's the one who helps us find our center. He's the one who helps us maneuver through the obstacles, which most often when we look at the obstacles presenting themselves, it's our own mind, our own self, the ego getting in the way. Look behind this door, oh, I'm feeling a lot of lack. This is Lakshmi, and she allows us to connect with gratitude and abundance. Kali is more strong, this fierce force, and I need to feel strong in my words and solid and confident in my boundaries. So I speak of it like that, and when I write my own chants, what I'll do is I'll look for resources that share a Kali mantra, like Chamundaye Kalima, or Ganesha, Om Gam Ganapatiye Namaha, or Lakshmi, Om Shrim Mahalakshmiye, and I'll infuse that into a chant. And you'll feel the energy of like that certain deity. Kali would be in more minor tones, and so I would perhaps use her with this like more rooted in the first couple chakras, where it feels like, okay, she's got this strong, forceful energy in the minor tones, and from there I might even infuse some English phrases within, and sometimes I'll take from favorite songs of mine that have been impactful to me over history. What I would like to also add is a mantra doesn't have to be in Sanskrit. It could be I am love, I am love, I am love, I am love, I am strong, I am strong. And I've done that through some of the yoga everyday videos where we work with a personal mantra. I'm confident in who I am unapologetically me. So never be afraid to just make up. You'll know what you're needing and trust what shows up for you in the seated meditation when you're building your own chants. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for that question. Have another one?
We have Esplans asking, how can I look at chanting as spiritual and not religious? Chanting feels really religious to me.
I think that's a great question.
That's a good one.
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
Why don't you chime in on that? I have lots to say, but
Yeah.
I'll let you go first.
Yeah, and I've been in situations in a yoga class because I brought chanting into a more mainstream studio environment, and I had to figure out how to make it accessible to people where it didn't feel dogmatic. And so I do speak a lot to how it just allows you, like, we learn how to differentiate between religious and spiritual, and just by feeling in the body the impact of the chanting. And a lot of people do relate it to church because you grew up, went to church however you went in your ritual with your family, and it stirs up some of that. If you weren't thoroughly enjoying going to church, or you decided to switch from being religious into more of a spiritual realm. But spirituality and religion can combine, I'd like to add as well. I would say that to step outside of this notion of religion is to feel more in the experience of the body and to notice the residual effects or the ongoing effects of the mantra, how it's affecting you in the body, versus getting too caught up in the stories around it or the expectations or the labels around it. And ultimately, it's about connection. It's really about connection, because studies were done in a church, but they measured the brain waves of people that were singing together, and they found that the brain waves connected. And the other interesting thing that they found was the heartbeats synced up. So by the end of the song, it was like one big beating heart in the room. So what I remind people is it's about this bigger picture of feeling expansive, the mind expanding into the potential of the body and the potential of the spirit. Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
And, having been raised Catholic and having some of my own apprehensions about anything that I felt religious, when I started to connect back with yoga, I really tuned into kind of wanting to understand the science and the logic and things behind it in order for my brain to be able to tune into that. And one of the things that really made it more accessible for me was this understanding that in the yoga tradition, we're not talking about these deities or these gods or these energies as something else that is outside of us, of another god that replaces someone else's god, battling someone else's god, or anything that is other than us. Because we start in the yoga tradition with the understanding that the same energy that kind of moves the tides, the same energy that causes seasons to come and go, creates a big storm, that same energy is the energy that moves through us and is the energy that moves through everything else in the world. And that just like the ancients really connected to the elements of water, earth, water, space, the moon, the sun, that these inherent energies within the universe around us have kind of qualities of their own that we seek inside of ourselves. Maybe the moon is always changing, right? The moon is kind of cool, reflective. The sun is strong and penetrating energy. So that when we're chanting to something or tuning into a certain energy, we're not tuning into something that's outside of ourselves or kind of singing praises to something that's different than us. We're actually acknowledging and attuning ourselves to that which is already there. And like you said so beautifully, it's like it's the bigger picture, and so the mantras are never asking you to, give away power to something else outside of yourself, or someone, to step away from a religious belief that you already believe in, but rather to drop into a connection that's ever present and always there.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good question, and people ask that a lot.
It's true.
Can we have another?
So we have a question coming in that is asking, how important is it to know and understand the actual meaning of a given mantra beyond its vibrational power?
Well, like you mentioned before, there might be certain lineages that are very strict about the exact pronunciation, but I always let people know that I'm not here to teach them how to exactly pronounce Sanskrit. It's about the bigger picture once again. So it's about feeling more connected to your heart, and it's about feeling that big heart connection to one another. And when I get into more complicated mantras, when I'm leading groups or teacher training groups, I always say that if they get tripped up on the words, the first thing that'll kick them down is the mind, right? So you can always throw in meow, works really well. My mom told me watermelon in church would work really well, but it's more just about being engaged in the connection piece and in the group experience versus being so worried and concerned about whether you're pronouncing the words right.
I think that's a great point. And, another piece, like we mentioned before, is that the power really lies in the intention and the devotional quality of it, like you said. And, I've found, I've been doing mantra practice for many years and gone through many different experiences of what that is. Like, I have to say it perfectly, to, I don't even care what I'm saying. But at some point, you know, whether you, because, you know, the science behind mantra is that, like, for some examples are like some of these great Maha mantras, like the Triambakam mantra or the Gayatri mantra. It's said that these mantras are living mantras, meaning that many believe that for 5,000 plus years, it's said that someone is always chanting this mantra around the world, that there are these mantras that have been so passed on and so embedded that at any time in some place around the world, this mantra is living, that it's always happening. And so this idea that these sounds, these mantras have been part of our culture, part of our species for thousands of years, maybe longer than that, has the potential to have some really profound effects on our consciousness. And, you know, I also sometimes find when I'm hearing a mantra, it's like an ancient remembering, you know, that there's a quality in myself that if I can get beyond the mind, which we eventually get to, lets go of, oh my gosh, do I need to know this? But it's like, I somehow know this, you know, I know this inside of me. And the beauty of the mantra is because it is beyond the word itself. Yeah. It is the actual thing that we are chanting, that at some point, we actually just start to feel the energy shift. Like you said, like something just starts to happen. There's an alchemy that happens of the mind kind of quieting a little bit, and the energy of whatever we are saying being more prevalent. You know, like you said with the Lakshmi mantra, or, you know, if you're chanting a Kali mantra, that you may start chanting sad, scared, you know, frustrated, and then start with the intention of like, I'm just going to chant this mantra and beg and hope for it to maybe help me. And, you know, eventually you may feel like, whoa, all of that anger or something that I came with is kind of dropped away, and I'm dropped into the rhythm and the pulse of the mantra, of the sound of, and to be clear, that we can also be doing them internally. We don't actually have to be saying them out loud. There is mantra for kirtan that's out loud, and there's also mantra internally.
Yeah, internal mantra. And also, I'd like to add that when you're chanting these ancient mantras, that each time they're chanted, it gains more power. So you're chanting with the history of the mantra, meaning there's someone there that knew how to pronounce it right, you know, and you're just tagging on, and you're also adding your voice and your energy to make it more powerful each time.
I had someone explain to me one time when we were talking about that. This was particularly talking about the goddesses or the deities, and talking about that these are essentially archetypes, you know, archetypal energies that we see repeat over and over and over again in human consciousness. And so the energy of Kali, the kind of fierce warrior, we see that manifest in many different ways. And that the goddess, that the particular energy manifests in three primary ways. There's the anthropomorphic form, so the kind of physical deity that we see the picture. There is the yantra form, the pictorial form. And then there's also the sonic form. There is the mantra. And for me, I was like, what? Like my brain just like could not wrap around it. And I'm like, science, I had to like really look it up and try to figure out to understand. And it really is, this is where kind of that concept of cymatics is really cool, where you can go and we can actually see the way that one particular sound frequency has its effect on matter. And that it was described to me as being like a little mini zip drive. So basically, like if there's this huge energy or this whole long mantra for one of the goddesses or for one of the energies, that you would learn the bija mantra or, you know, the seed mantra of something, and that it's kind of like this little zip drive packet that like within inside this one word, this one energetic frequency holds all of this other information. And for me, it was one of those things that like I just wanted to try to like keep looking things up and rationalize it as much as possible. And I couldn't. And my teacher just like take the book away and was like, you just have to sit and experience it. And really that's kind of the magic of this process, is that it's really all about experiencing it. So I know you have your harmonium here, and I'm sure we have some questions of people asking about that. Jacqueline, do you have something that maybe Steph can show us?
Yeah, we have two really good questions that relate to each other coming in from S. Blondes and Kate. Esperance is asking, how can I ignite my chakras using mantra? And should I focus mantra in my head, my third eye point, or other places in the body? So maybe you can give us a little demo to answer that
Yeah,
question.
I'd love to do
I think it's all about having the experience. Let's do it.
a seed sound bija mantra meditation.
Perfect. Perfect. See if we can sit cross-legged. There we go.
All right. Yeah, so find a long spine and just close your eyes and take a few moments to allow your breath to settle you into your body. And like Ashleigh mentioned earlier, the bija mantras or the seed mantras, the seed sounds, they hold the power of the certain areas of the body and the chakra system that we're focusing on. So what I'll do is I'll cue you the area of the body to focus on, and we'll go from the first chakra up through the crown, the seventh. And I'll give you the bija mantra, the seed sound, to sing with us. And also feel that your voice comes from this area. So it's more of an experience of sound and vibration as we run up the system along the Sushumna Nadi, the main nadi. And this is a way to help cleanse and balance. The base of the spine is the first area, the first chakra. And its bija mantra is Lam, L-A-M, which is like a cross between lamb and lum, Lam. Inhale. At your navel center, Vam, V-A-M. Inhale. Plexus, which is between the navel center and just below the ribs. Its sound is Ram or Ram, R-A-M. Inhale. Ram. Heart chakra, Yam. So with the eyes closed, I feel like you're pulling the breath up from the root, out through the crown, and back down the same way. And do that 2 more times. And from this place of heightened awareness of how you feel more present in your body, more open in your heart, more connected to your spirit, consider a personal mantra. And I thank you for sharing that meditation. Namaste.
Thank you, Steph.
You're welcome.
Beautiful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. That's That's a great practice for people to do really anytime. I think probably is a great way to start, and reminding them that you can do it out loud, vocally, or you can also do it internally.
Yeah.
Will you just go through them one more time quickly, just so if someone wants to write them down?
Yes.
What they are, again, how they correspond to each of the chakras.
First chakra is Lam, second Vam, third Ram, fourth Yam, fifth Hum, sixth Om, and then the crown is a silent Om. So it goes base, the first chakra, the base of the spine, the second, the navel center, the third, the solar plexus between the navel and the lower ribs, then the heart and the throat, third eye, and the crown. Yeah, and if that gets a little overwhelming, to start just with Om.
I was just going to say that.
Just go roll with some Oms.
Yeah. And I think a big piece that is easy for people to tune into is just tuning into the inner body, and starting to be connected with sound and have that experience of your inner self.
Yeah, and I've been doing it in class with people sitting upright, and a lot of times I'll end class with them lying on their backs so they can actually feel the back body with the experience of the vibration. Yeah, and then it's hard to get them out of Shavasana.
Yeah, I bet.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, Steph. It's great to sit with you. And thank you, everyone, for joining in to Yoga Talks Live. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.
Namaste.